History beyond sleep, where the secrets textbooks tried to bury finally awaken. Tonight,
There is a stillness that lives only in the bones of ancient places, a hush that isn't quite silence, but memory breathing softly beneath the stone. At the edge of a forgotten hill in a city reborn too many times to count, stands a church so modest in stature one might pass it by without pause. Its roofline is simple, its steeple humble, and yet, beneath its worn floors, beneath the gentle echo of footsteps and candlelight, lies something the world has only begun to uncover, a mystery as old as organized faith itself. The church is known today as St. Sergius and Bacchus in what is now Turkey, a site claimed by many to be the oldest Christian church still standing. It is not the only claimant to the title. From Ethiopia's Lalibela to Syria's Dare Europos, other sacred ruins compete for that solemn distinction. But here, in the earth of ancient Antioch, once a jewel of the Roman East, there is a deeper story, one layered not just in centuries, but in silences. Archaeologists often speak of strata, the layers of soil that tell a place's story. Dig 1 meter, you find pottery. 2 meters, a mosaic. 3 meters, bones. Each level a different world, a different empire, a different voice. And here, beneath this church, the strata speak in whispers dot in the dim half-light of the nave, where modern pilgrims light candles before faceless icons. The floor dips ever so slightly, not enough to notice unless you're still. That dip marks an entrance once sealed. Long before anyone called this place a church, it was a cave, a meeting place, perhaps even a tomb. The earliest Christian communities, we must remember, were born in secrecy. They worshipped in homes, in underground rooms, in catacombs. To gather openly was a death sentence, and so the faith grew not through power, but through quietness. Like water moving beneath frozen soil and so we imagine them here, by torchlight a circle of believers, whispers of psalms, the breaking of bread, a baby fussing in the shadows, a mother weeping for a husband crucified. They did not know they were making history. They only knew they were trying to hold on to hope in a world that did not yet have a name for them. Centuries later, emperors would build towering cathedrals. Faith would be dressed in gold and echo in Latin. But it began here, in stone hollowed out by hands, warmed by breath. It began where the earth itself sheltered the sacred. Modern excavations have confirmed what generations of monks already believed in silence, that beneath the modest church lies a much older structure, perhaps first dug in the 1st century. A.D., when the apostles still walked the earth, when Rome still ruled the known world. Beneath that they found Roman mosaics, and beneath that yet another layer, predating Christianity altogether. This place was always sacred. Even before the cross, people came here to speak with the divine. The hill on which the church now stands once overlooked a Roman road, a place of passing and prayer. Travelers would pause, not to rest their bodies, but to rest their souls. It is said the hill listens. Some believe it still does. There is something hauntingly beautiful about a church built not at the height of faith, but at its infancy. It reminds us that the beginning of belief is never loud. It is never carved in marble or adorned in power. It is quiet, fragile, alive only because someone chose to remember. A single oil lamp, a simple prayer in a language now lost. a stone marked only by the presence of tears. These were the first sacraments. And now, millennia later, the ground still holds those echoes, in the creak of old beams, in the scent of myrrh and dust, in the way light filters through the small, arched windows, as if afraid to disturb what rests below. Historians debate the precise origins. Some say the site was first used in the 30s A.D., during the Apostolic Age. Others claim it rose under Constantine's protection in the 4th century. But perhaps exact dates are less important than the sense, the undeniable pull, that this place has always been more than stone. People do not return to ordinary buildings generation after generation. They return to places that remember them, places that feel alive not because of their walls, but because of the silence they keep. Tonight, as you drift, imagine it, a cool chamber beneath the church, a flicker of torchlight against rough-hewn stone, a young woman kneeling, whispering the name of someone she's lost. Above, the church sleeps. Below, faith stirs. Let us walk softly. We have just begun. Before there was a church, there was a city, not merely a collection of homes and streets, but a living breath of civilization, layered, restless, built and rebuilt, like a dream that refused to end. A city older than the whispers of saints, older than the cross etched in olive wood. And beneath that church, folded into the body of the earth, the ghost of that city still lingers. This was Antioch, the Queen of the East, founded in the 4th century BCE by Seleucus I, a general of Alexander the Great. A city straddling rivers. Language, empire. Here, Greek met Persian, Roman kissed Aramaic. Here the early world was wide and teeming, and the divine was traded as freely as silk and salt. Antioch, where prophets once walked unknown, and emperors sought omens in the stars. Long before the church was a sanctuary, Antioch was a crossroads of belief. Temples to Apollo, Artemis, and Baal rose high into the Syrian sky. There were mystery cults, household gods, shadowy rites beneath moonlight. Religion was not a boundary, it was a mosaic. And into that mosaic another thread was quietly woven, a new faith, born not in palaces, but among fishermen and stonemasons. When early followers of the Christ came to Antioch, they came as strangers. They brought no statues, no temples, no armies, only stories. Stories of a man who healed without payment, who dined with the lowly and forgave the unforgivable, who died and yet did not remain dead. And for the first time they were given a name here, Christians. But the city beneath the church tells us more than just names. Its bones, made of aqueducts, marketplaces, and bathhouses, speak of a deeply human world. A city bursting with laughter, plague, politics, betrayal, and hope. What lies beneath the church are not merely ruins. They are foundations of contradiction, faith carved from chaos, order born out of collapse. Excavations beneath the church have revealed tiled floors and Roman columns, some embedded directly into the modern structure, as though the present could not quite sever its ties to the past. Beneath the apse, that rounded curve of sacred space, lies a cistern, once used by Roman engineers to feed clean water into homes above. Later, it would become a place of baptism. Water once used to wash skin, now used to cleanse the soul. Further down through narrow, crumbling stairwells and chambers buried by time, archaeologists uncovered a network of passageways, part of a city-wide infrastructure built nearly 2,000 years ago. Some led to the necropolis, the city of the dead, others to storage rooms and military quarters. One even descended into what appears to be a meeting hall, square, stone-lined, acoustically perfect. Not a place for trade, but for gathering. Perhaps even worship. Could this be where the first Christians of Antioch met in secret? Did they sing beneath these very stones, voices low, fearful, resolute? Did they light lamps in defiance of darkness? The mind wanders, and in that gentle wandering we begin to understand. The church does not simply stand above history. It rests within it, like a pearl within a shell, shaped by years of pressure and prayer. And what of the people? The men and women who built these roads, hauled these stones, fed their children, and feared the gods. From crumbled frescoes and broken pots we gather fragments. A woman's name etched in Latin on a jewelry box, Livia. A child's clay doll, worn at the edges. Coins bearing the face of Nero, the tyrant who watched Rome burn. And beneath them all, beneath layer upon layer, signs of a pre-Roman settlement dating back even further. Before Antioch, another city had lived here, unnamed, unrecorded, undisturbed. Perhaps this is why the church endures, not because it sits atop one holy place, but because it crowns generations of reverence, belief built upon belief, like candles relit again and again by different hands, and the earth remembers them. Oh, there is something profoundly moving about this layered devotion. It is not neat. It is not singular. It is messy, human, divine, all at once. In the silence of the crypts, you can almost feel the weight of these centuries pressing upward, a pressure not of burden, but of witness. The city beneath the church does not sleep. It waits. And in that waiting, it speaks. Tonight, as your thoughts grow soft and slow, imagine walking down through time, not in years, but in steps. Each level a page, each chamber a stanza, and at the bottom, a silence that is not empty, but full of lives once lived, of prayers once whispered, and of the sacred breath that binds them all together. We leave the city beneath for now, but it does not leave us. Every ancient place begins with a dream, a vision seen through the eyes of one who dares to shape stone and spirit alike. This church, the oldest known to cradle the Christian faith, owes its birth to such a dreamer, or perhaps to many whose hands and hearts converged across time. We will call him simply the Builder, a man shrouded by shadows of history, yet whose presence lingers like a quiet heartbeat beneath the walls. We know little of his name. His story was never recorded in grand scrolls or royal decrees, but fragments survive. A parchment here, a faint inscription there, a whispered legend passed down by generations of caretakers and monks. He was said to be a craftsman and a believer, one who heard a calling not just to construct a building, but to manifest a sanctuary for hope itself. The builder's vision was not born from stone alone. It was born from faith, fragile as the first flicker of dawn. The world around him was harsh, a place of empire and conquest, where gods were many and believers few. He lived in an age when Christianity was barely more than a flickering candle. In the dark, To build a church then was to risk everything. Yet he chose this hill, a place already sacred, where the earth breathed with older prayers. Some say he dreamed of a place where light could enter the darkness, where the lowly could gather without fear. Others say he was guided by a divine hand, the blueprint revealed in a vision. The stones he selected were not the grand marble of emperors, but humble rock, worn, rough-hewn, resonant with history. Each stone placed was a prayer, each arch a testament. The builder worked not for glory, but for the sanctity of creation itself. Early Christian texts speak of such builders, men who saw the sacred in the ordinary, who turned craft into liturgy. Their tools were simple: chisel, hammer, faith. But their legacy was profound. The builder's vision extended beyond mere walls. He designed secret chambers, rooms that could shelter the persecuted, hide ancient scrolls, or offer refuge in times of terror. A labyrinth beneath the church was whispered of, a maze of stone corridors where faith could hide, waiting for the dawn. Some scholars believe these hidden spaces were part of a network connecting early Christian communities across the city, a secret web woven in silence. Others think they were symbolic, a spiritual journey carved in stone, where the faithful could walk in reflection and prayer. Either way, the builder's hand shaped more than stone. It shaped mystery. And what of the vision itself? Was it a dream of peace, of salvation, or something more elusive, a yearning for a faith that could endure the storms of time? The builder is said to have inscribed a single word on one cornerstone, now almost worn away by centuries: Esperanza, hope. Hope that faith could flourish in a hostile world. Hope that the fragile human spirit could rise again and again. Like a candle's flame. Legends grew around him, too. Some told of a night when the builder stood beneath the stars praying for guidance and saw a vision of a dove descending from the heavens. Others whispered that he was visited by an angel who handed him the plans for the church etched in light. Whether myth or truth, these stories reveal something deeper. The church was not built by stone and mortar alone, but by belief, a belief so strong it could move mountains, or at least shape them into sanctuaries. As we walk through the ancient nave today, it is easy to forget the courage it took to build this place. The fear, the quiet defiance, the faith in the unseen. In a world ruled by emperors and laws, the builder dared to build for the invisible. He laid foundations not just in earth, but in the hearts of generations yet to come. And that is the true legacy of the builder's vision. Not the church itself, but the dream it inspires, that even in darkness a single light can shine, that even in silence faith can speak. So tonight, as you rest your head and close your eyes, imagine the builder's hands, worn, steady, patient, shaping stone with prayer. Imagine the faint sound of hammer on rock echoing softly through centuries. And know that beneath your dreams, that quiet vision still lives, waiting to be discovered again. We have only just begun to listen. Beneath the polished stone of the baptismal font, a secret sleeps. It lies hidden in the cool shadows, untouched by sunlight but not by time. Bones, fragile, silent remnants of lives once lived, rest beneath the place where countless souls have been welcomed into faith. This is no accident, no mere coincidence of foundation. It is a deliberate layering, a whisper from the past reaching up through centuries. Baptism, The rite of passage into Christianity is a sacred moment, a washing away of the old, a rebirth into the new. But here, under the place where water once baptized bodies and souls, the old remains quietly entombed. It is as if the Church itself remembers the cycle of life and death, of beginnings wrapped within endings. The bones belong to several individuals, archaeologists say, men, women, and children dating back to the earliest days of the Church's foundation. Some were laid to rest long before the Church's stones were set. Others may have been interred intentionally beneath the baptismal, as a way of sanctifying the ground. The practice of burying the faithful beneath churches is ancient, meant to bring the living and the dead closer in a sacred embrace. But to find such remains beneath the baptismal is rare. It speaks of a community intertwined with their faith not just in life, but in death. There is a haunting beauty in this, the knowledge that the first prayers offered at this font were uttered over the very bones that held stories now forgotten. A mother baptizing her child over the resting place of an ancestor long gone. A survivor stepping into new light while shadows lie just beneath. Careful study reveals traces of ritual, small amulets, crosses carved into bone fragments, signs of anointing oil absorbed into cloth long decayed. These relics hint at a people fiercely devoted, who faced persecution and hardship with a faith so steadfast it became part of their very being. One skeleton, a young woman, shows evidence of injury, perhaps from violence or illness. Her bones bear the scars of survival, a silent testament to endurance. Could she have been one of the earliest believers, baptized in secret, buried in fear, but remembered in stone? The baptismal font above, with its smooth basin and carved edges, holds clear water still today. Pilgrims dip their fingers and cross themselves here, unaware of the quiet company below. Water and bone, life and death, mingling beneath the feet. Of the faithful dot, it is a reminder that faith is not simply a bright light shining forward. It is a river that flows backward, carrying memories beneath its surface. To be baptized is to join a lineage, one marked not only by hope, but by sacrifice. In ancient texts, baptism is described as a passage through water into new life. But here, beneath the water, lies the sediment of countless stories of fear, hope, loss, and love. The Church, it seems, was built on the bones of its believers, quite literally, a foundation not only of stone, but of flesh and spirit. Local legend tells of a hidden chamber beneath the font, a small room where the earliest Christians once gathered, their voices hushed against the walls. Though archaeologists have found no direct entrance, subtle cracks and air shafts suggest something undiscovered yet lingers below. Could this be where the first baptisms took place, a sacred refuge beneath the sanctuary? The symbolism is profound, a place of rebirth built upon the memory of those who came before. Life emerging from death, faith rising from fear. As we reflect on these bones, we touch the fragile edge of human history. We glimpse the silent bravery of those who lived in shadow, who held on to light when all seemed lost. They are the roots of the tree that grew into the church above, unseen but essential. Tonight, as you settle into sleep, imagine dipping your hands into the cool water of that ancient font. Feel the weight of centuries beneath your fingers. Know that beneath your dreams lives a quiet chorus of souls, whispering in bone and stone, telling stories only the heart can hear dot, and in their silence faith endures. Beneath the floorboards and the quiet prayers of the oldest church lies a secret chamber, a crypt bathed in shadows and whispers, where the air is thick with the scent of aged stone and faint remnants of incense. They call it the Crypt of Eternal Candles, a place where time seems to stand still, and where flame, though flickering, never dies. The crypt is small, almost hidden, accessible only through a narrow passage long forgotten by most. Its walls are carved from solid rock, damp and cool to the touch, yet humming softly with stories centuries old. Inside, dozens of candle holders cling to the walls, bronze, wrought iron, each shaped with delicate craftsmanship, each once holding candles, said to burn endlessly, long after their wicks should have been spent. Legends swirl around this crypt like the smoke of its vanished candles. Some say the flames were lit by a saint, a holy man whose spirit chose to linger and guard the sacred beneath the church. Others whisper that the candles burn with the prayers of the faithful, prayers that never cease, never flicker out. It is a place of sanctuary, a refuge for souls both living and departed. Archaeologists, drawn to its mystery, have explored the crypt with reverence. They found traces of candle wax, hardened now like crystallized tears. Charcoal marks on the walls tell of ancient vigils, and scattered fragments of pottery suggest offerings left behind. Tokens of faith and hope dot the crypt is said to be the resting place of several early martyrs, those who gave their lives for their beliefs, whose stories are only partially told by time. Within the rock their presence lingers, quiet but profound, as if the very air remembers the sacrifice. Pilgrims who visit the church speak of feeling a warmth beneath their feet when standing over the crypt, a sensation both comforting and unsettling, as if the crypt breathes beneath the ground. One elderly monk described it as the heartbeat of faith itself. What is it about flame that fascinates us so deeply? Perhaps because it is both fragile and fierce. A single candle can be snuffed out with a breath, yet 1,000 candles together can light the darkest night. In this crypt, the idea of eternal flame becomes a metaphor, not just for divinity, but for human perseverance. Scholars debate whether the crypt's eternal candles were physical or spiritual. Were their lamps designed with ancient oil so pure it burned longer than any known? Or is the eternal flame a symbol, the eternal presence of belief, burning bright through centuries of darkness? The crypt's carvings add to the mystery. Delicate motifs of vines, doves, and stars intertwine with more cryptic symbols, crosses entwined with serpents, perhaps remnants of pre-Christian faith or secret sects. Each image tells a story, though the language is lost to time. A silent hymn carved in stone. Within this stillness, the crypt holds a paradox. It is a place of endings, where the dead rest, and a place of beginnings, where hope is kindled anew. Candles, whether real or imagined, serve as a bridge between past and present, life and death, seen and unseen. Imagine, on a long-forgotten night, a lone figure kneeling in the crypt, hands folded, lips moving in prayer, eyes glimmering in candlelight. That never fades. The soft drip of wax echoes like a heartbeat. Outside, the world is caught in turmoil, persecution, war, the slow crumbling of old empires. But here, beneath the church, a flame still burns. That flame is not just fire, it is courage. It is remembrance. It is the quiet, unwavering voice of those who refuse to let faith die. And though the candles no longer burn, the spirit of that eternal light persists. In every flicker of candlelight in churches around the world, in every whispered prayer in the dark, in every quiet act of hope when all else seems lost. Tonight, as you draw your blankets close and close your eyes, imagine yourself descending the narrow steps to this crypt. Feel the cool stone beneath your hands, the hush of centuries around. You see the endless candles glowing softly in the dark, their light unwavering. Breathe in the scent of ancient prayers and the promise they hold. Know that beneath the church, in the crypt of eternal candles, the flame still flickers. A light that neither time nor shadow can ever fully extinguish. Rest now, wrapped in that light. You are held by the faith of ages. Beneath the quiet floorboards of the ancient church, hidden behind a loose stone in a narrow wall, something extraordinary awaited discovery. A scroll long forgotten, bound in linen yellowed by the slow hand of time. Not a gospel found in grand libraries or ornate reliquaries, but a fragile whisper from the past, wrapped in silence and shadow. This scroll was no ordinary manuscript. Its text was written in a script unfamiliar to most scholars, a mixture of Greek and Aramaic letters, poetic and raw. Its words carried a tenderness, a gentle voice speaking not of doctrine or dogma, but of a faith lived in trembling hope and quiet rebellion. What made this scroll remarkable was what it omitted as much as what it included. There were no tales of miracles shouted from rooftops, no sermons declaring power. Instead, it spoke in metaphor, weaving a story of a community bound not by law, but by love. A story of a dove, pure, elusive, guiding, that appears at moments of deepest despair, lifting the faithful beyond fear. Scholars who examined the scroll believed it might have been hidden deliberately, tucked away by someone who feared it could be lost or misunderstood. Its fragile pages suggested secrecy and protection, perhaps even reverence for the words themselves. In a time when Christian teachings were still shaping themselves, when early followers faced persecution and heresy trials, such writings could have been dangerous. Yet this scroll seemed to carry a message both radical and tender, that faith was a journey of the heart, not just the mind, that the divine might be found not in grand cathedrals, but in the smallest acts of kindness. The church where it was found was more than a building, it was a refuge, a place where early believers might come to hear these words in whispers, shielded from the eyes of the powerful. There is a quiet power in hidden texts like this scroll. They remind us that faith is not a single story, but many, layered, complex, sometimes contradictory, that beneath official histories lie voices that struggle to be heard, voices that question and hope. The metaphor of the dove in the scroll is striking. A bird that is gentle yet free, soft yet resilient. It moves silently, unobserved by many, yet changes the course of lives. A symbol of peace, of spirit, of transformation. One passage describes the dove as a silent flame in the darkest night, a presence that cannot be seen but deeply felt. In those words, the scroll captures the essence of faith itself, unseen, often unfathomable, yet profoundly real. For the believers who hid this scroll, the message was clear. Faith is not always loud. Sometimes it is a quiet companion. Sometimes it is a whisper that carries us through despair. The discovery of the scroll offers a rare glimpse into the intimate world of early Christianity, a world where courage was often silent and hope was fragile, yet fierce. As you imagine this scroll, imagine the hands that wrote it, trembling but determined. Imagine the fear of discovery, the hope that these words would someday be found and understood. Imagine the faith that wove itself into the very fabric of these fragile pages. The scroll is a reminder that beneath the stones of the oldest church lies not only history, but humanity, a sacred human story, imperfect and beautiful, woven from doubt, love, fear, and hope. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, picture the scroll tucked behind that loose stone, waiting, patient, a secret held close by the earth itself. Listen for the soft flutter of its pages in the dark, and know that even in silence faith speaks. There are prayers no longer spoken aloud, hymns whose melodies have slipped quietly into shadow, and rituals once sacred that time has folded into silence. This is the realm of the forgotten liturgy, the ancient worship practices that once filled the oldest church with voice and breath, now only hinted at by the faintest traces of memory. Beneath the worn stones and fading frescoes lie echoes of voices, rising softly in a language that no longer flows from the tongue. The early Christians of Antioch, the congregation who first gathered beneath this church's humble roof, lived their faith not in grand cathedrals, but in simple acts of devotion. Their liturgy was not written in books bound with gold, but inscribed in the beating of their hearts. Each prayer a quiet offering, each gesture a secret language shared in trust. What did they pray? Perhaps the same words we know, but spoken in different tongues, shaped by local dialects and the rhythm of daily life. Or perhaps their prayers were wild and free, improvisations of the soul, rising in moments of fear and hope. Archaeologists and historians have pieced together fragments of early worship, broken pottery that held incense, faint marks on stone floors suggesting the placement of altars, and small crosses carved deep into wood and plaster. Inscriptions hint at hymns sung in Greek and Syriac, melodies now lost but once vibrant and alive. One discovery was particularly poignant, a small scroll containing a fragment of an ancient hymn, written in a hand both careful and trembling. The words speak of light emerging from darkness, a peace born from struggle, and of a journey toward an eternal home. Though incomplete, the hymn's beauty lingers, a delicate thread connecting past and present. The forgotten liturgy was more than words or music. It was a way of being, a living breath flowing through the community. Every ritual, from the breaking of bread to the sharing of wine, was imbued with meaning beyond the visible. Each act was a dance between the earthly and the divine. Yet, as Christianity grew in power and scale, many of these early, intimate practices were overshadowed by formal doctrine and ceremony. The liturgy became standardized, sung in great cathedrals and recorded in books. The wild, spontaneous worship of the earliest believers was quieted, folded into tradition. But traces remain, in the way a modern worshiper pauses to light a candle, in the soft murmur of prayers in a quiet church, in moments of personal devotion when words fail and the heart speaks alone. The oldest church holds these traces beneath its stone, the ghost of a liturgy that once breathed life into cold walls. To imagine that ancient worship is to imagine a community bound not just by belief, but by love, fear, and hope. It is to hear voices rising in the flicker of candlelight in secret rooms, in the hush before dawn. The forgotten liturgy reminds us that faith is a living thing, not static, but growing, changing, adapting, that what is lost can still be found not in books or relics, but in the quiet spaces between breath and prayer. Tonight, as you settle into the quiet embrace of sleep, listen for those ancient hymns, soft, tender, carried on the wind of time. Imagine yourself among those early worshippers, their voices lifting in a song of hope and endurance. And know that, though forgotten by many, their prayers still rise. Rest now in that sacred silence, wrapped in the gentle echo of the forgotten liturgy. Beyond the apse of the church, behind a wall veiled in ivy and silence, there is said to be a hidden garden, a place not marked on maps, not noted in official records, yet whispered about by caretakers and pilgrims alike. They call it the secret garden of Saints. It is not a garden of grand fountains or sculpted hedges, but something far more intimate. A small courtyard where wildflowers grow between ancient stones, where fig trees lean toward the morning sun, and where the air is always thick with a presence that is hard to name, not divine, exactly, but deeply sacred. Legend has it that the earliest saints of Antioch, the nameless martyrs, the quiet healers, the steadfast believers, once gathered here, not for ceremony, but for refuge. Here, away from Roman eyes and imperial suspicion, they broke bread, washed one another's feet, and wept in the safety of each other's company. Time has blurred the line between fact and story. No historical document records the garden's creation. No stone inscription names its founders. And yet, something lingers here, a stillness, a sacred hush, as though the soil itself remembers. Pilgrims who've stumbled upon it often report a sensation difficult to describe. Not awe, but something gentler, as if they had stepped not into history, but into the memory of prayer. One corner of the garden holds a weathered bench, carved with symbols half erased by time. Some say it marks the resting place of a woman known only as the listener, a figure from local legend who sat for years in silence, hearing the stories and sorrows of others, and whispering their names into her prayers each night. Others believe the garden was once used for secret anointings, the earliest baptisms performed not with ritual pomp, but with dew gathered at dawn, soft water, bare feet, moonlight filtering through olive leaves. Faith practiced not as spectacle, but as stillness. Here the saints were not canonized. They were not adorned in robes or marble halos. They were mothers holding sick children, carpenters with tired hands, widows lighting lamps against the dark. They were faithful not in speech, but in silence. They were holy not because they were exalted, but because they endured, scattered. Throughout the garden are small, unmarked stones, some upright, some half-sunken, some barely visible beneath moss and vine. It is believed they are grave markers, each stone a life remembered in the soil. No names, only presence. And isn't that the truth of most saints? Not remembered by title, but by love, by the way they tended to the broken, by the way they forgave, by the way they quietly carried light into places others feared to go. The secret garden holds no relics, no glass cases, no treasures in the earthly sense. Its treasure is the stillness, the softness, the echo of footsteps that once paused to kneel here. Some nights monks report finding candles mysteriously lit there, though no one claims to have placed them. Other times a single white blossom appears overnight on the old stone altar. Even in winter, perhaps the saints have not left. Perhaps they simply walk more softly. Now, to sit in this garden, even only in the mind, is to understand something profound, that holiness does not always dwell in thunder or light. Sometimes it lives in the quiet act of waiting, in patience, in unnoticed kindness, in the small bloom that rises through the cracked stone. Tonight, as your thoughts slow and the world grows quiet, picture the garden, the trees, the breeze, the old stones warmed by fading sunlight. Imagine yourself walking barefoot through that sacred space. The scent of lavender, the hush of doves nesting in the walls, and around you, though unseen, the gentle company of those who live their faith not for praise, but for love. You are not alone. You are walking where saints once walked, and still walk. Sleep now under the same sky they once watched, and let the garden hold you gently in its silence. There are songs that rise in grand cathedrals, and there are songs that rise from memory. Some choirs wear robes, stand in marble chancels, and lift trained voices into vaulted space. But long before choirs were recorded in canon, there was a hung, quiet, unshaped, sung in shadows and sanctuary. They call it the choir without. A name. It was never meant to be known, never written down. No manuscripts, no notations, no scrolls bound in leather. Only breath, only voice, only faith. The earliest Christians in Antioch, those who gathered beneath the stone roof of the world's oldest church, sang not to impress, but to endure. Their melodies were not rehearsed. They were remembered. They sang in hidden chambers by candlelight. They sang when words failed. They sang when they were afraid. Some believe the songs were adapted from older Hebrew psalms. Others say they were spontaneous songs of lament or praise or gratitude, whispered into the night. Archaeological evidence is limited. A few fragments of lyrics etched into broken pottery, a curved wall with perfect acoustics beneath the main chamber of the church, a primitive instrument found tucked in a crevice, shaped like a lyre but smaller. But the stories linger. There is one, passed down by generations of monks, of a woman who could not speak, but whose voice returned only in song. They say she led the choir for years, barefoot, hidden behind a cloth veil, her voice lifting the spirits of those who were close to breaking. Another tale tells of a boy who composed hymns from dreams, waking with melodies no one had heard, and teaching them by humming into the hands of the dying. And always, always, these voices came together, not in performance, but in shared breath, each singer a thread in the tapestry. No name, no solo, only togetherness. This was the choir, a people who had nothing, who risked everything, but who sang. And perhaps this is why their music still feels near, though we cannot hear it with our ears. It was never meant for stages. It was never meant to be remembered with precision. Only with feeling. Modern visitors to the church report a strange phenomenon. In the deepest silence of the old sanctuary, a faint tone, like a single note, seems to resonate through the walls. Not loud, not obvious, but present. Some believe it is an echo of the choir. Others say it is the sound of stone remembering song. It is possible, of course, that it is simply wind or acoustics or imagination. But there is something comforting in the possibility that music lingers, even when those who sang it are long gone. Music, after all, does not need to be heard to exist. It lives in the air. It lives in rhythm, in heartbeat, in breath. The choir, without a name, teaches us that worship does not need structure to be sacred, that a song hummed in fear can be as holy as a chant sung in triumph. And perhaps that is what we are meant to remember, not the tune, but the intention. In one uncovered wall of the church's substructure, a faded carving remains, an ark of 5 birds with open beaks, no explanation, no text. Some believe it is a depiction of the choir, a metaphor made in stone, saying, "They flew together and they sang." Tonight, as the world grows quiet around you, listen not for melody, but for memory. Imagine standing in the darkened nave, alone and yet not. Imagine a harmony that has no name, a song that has no end. Let it carry you gently through the threshold of sleep, soft as breath, ancient as hope. The choir still sings. In every sacred place. There is often one detail left unexplained, a single piece of the architecture that defies the logic of design, neither ornamental nor structural, yet deeply intentional. In this ancient church, that detail is a window, a narrow slit of stone and glass, set high above the nave, hidden behind a hanging veil of woven linen. It has no frame, no decoration, just light, sometimes golden, sometimes gray, streaming through in a shaft that touches nothing directly, but seems always to find the dust in the air. They call it the veiled window, though none can say for certain why the veil was ever placed there. Was it to protect what was behind it, or to protect us from what might shine through? Architects have puzzled over it. It leads nowhere, it opens to no view. Its shape is slightly off-kilter, a slanted arch, as if traced by an unsteady hand, or as though the church itself leaned towards some unseen truth. Legends, however, offer their own explanations. One tale speaks of a woman, not a saint nor a prophet, but a widow who used to sit below the window every morning. Each day at dawn, the light would fall on her folded hands. She told no one why, but when she passed, the veil was hung in. Her memory. Some say she once saw something through that window, something not of this world. Another story claims that the veil marks a moment, not a place, that on one particular day of the year, at one precise hour, the sun aligns with the window and casts a beam of light that falls perfectly upon a carved stone in the center of the floor, a stone marked with a single word, Lambda Pi Y Sigma, hope. There are monks who keep the vigil. Each year, on that morning, they gather in silence, watching the window from the shadows. Some years the light falls as expected. Other years it misses by inches. Still they return, because the mystery is not in the accuracy, but in the waiting, and that is what the window seems to represent. A waiting, a watching, a readiness to see what is not always seen. Even in its silence the window seems alive. It breathes with the rhythm of the church, casting light that never quite lands where you expect. Sometimes it strikes a column, sometimes the wall, and sometimes it fills the air with nothing more than brightness, a soft glow that touches no object, yet changes everything. Historians believe the window may have been a liturgical device used to mark time, or seasons, or the return of a sacred day. Its veil, perhaps, was drawn only during times of mourning or repentance, but others see something deeper. They say the veil was not meant to cover the window, but to honor it like a bridal veil, like a mystery too beautiful to be exposed all at once. There is something poetic in that, a window that shows nothing, yet reveals everything. Not a view to the world, but a threshold to the inner life. Sometimes visitors to the church stand before it for hours, waiting for the light to shift. And when it does, when it finally spills through, illuminating dust motes like floating prayers, they say it feels like time stops. One woman, a traveler from far away, wrote in the guest book beneath the church, "I did not hear God's voice here, but I saw his silence." And maybe that's what the window was always for, not for seeing out, but for being seen by something greater, quieter, watching from the other side. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine that window, the veil gently swaying, the light waiting just behind it, and you beneath it, a part of the stillness, a part of the watching. There is nothing to seek, only to receive. The veiled window doesn't ask for answers. It offers something rarer, the permission not to know, to wonder, to wait, to hope. Sleep now as the light slips softly through the veil and wraps the room in gold. In the quiet folds of history, some moments shimmer with quiet defiance, moments when the fragile earth trembles, yet the world beneath our feet refuses to fall apart. Such is the story of the earthquake that didn't destroy, an event whispered through centuries, a miracle wrapped in stone and silence. Long ago, when empires were shifting like sand, the city around the oldest church trembled with fury. Rivers swelled and cracked the earth. Walls that had stood for centuries shook as if alive. Fear rippled through the streets. People fled, clutching what little they could carry. But in the heart of the city, where the church stood, a sanctuary of faith and stone, the earth quaked and groaned, yet the church remained. Its ancient walls, weathered by time and trial, held firm. Not a single stone was dislodged. Not one window shattered. To those who witnessed it, this was no coincidence. It was a sign, a promise etched not in words, but in the resilience of stone and spirit. A testament to faith, to something greater holding the world together when all else seemed to unravel. Geologists now understand the region's seismic history, a land born of fault lines and fire. Earthquakes were not rare, they were inevitable. But this church, the oldest known, stood unyielding. The question remains, how? Some say the builders knew secrets, ancient wisdom of foundations, of angles and arches shaped to bend, but not break. Others believe the church was protected by prayer, by the silent courage of those who placed hope in every brick. Inside the church, beneath layers of dust and shadow, evidence of the quake lingers. Cracks spiderweb along the outer walls, faint but visible. An altar stone slightly tilted, as if bowing to the earth's tremor. Yet nothing that suggests ruin. The people, too, tell their stories. Monks have preserved oral histories of that day. Tales passed down in quiet murmurs. They speak of lights flickering, but never dying, of voices raised in prayer, rising above the roar of the shaking earth. One story tells of a child carried into the church by her mother as the ground shook beneath them. They knelt beneath the vaulted ceiling, and as the tremors ceased, the child smiled, unafraid. Her faith, they say, was the calm that held the church steady. The earthquake did not destroy, but it changed the church forever. The community gathered to repair, to restore, and in those repairs new stories were carved into stone, prayers, and blessings etched in quiet gratitude. This event became a symbol, a reminder that even when the world quakes beneath us, there is a place where we can stand firm, where faith, like stone, can withstand the shaking. For centuries after, pilgrims came to the church seeking refuge, not just from physical storms, but from life's unseen tremors. The earthquake became a parable, a quiet promise that strength can arise from fragility. Tonight, as you lie still beneath the quiet sky, imagine the earth trembling softly beneath you, a gentle rumble that shakes the world but leaves your sanctuary untouched. Feel the steady strength of ancient stone holding firm, and let it remind you that even in the face of upheaval, there are places and moments of peace that rest now, embraced by that quiet endurance. The earthquake came, but it did not destroy. Beneath layers of plaster and centuries of dust, beneath the quiet breath of time itself, lie secrets painted in color, delicate frescoes, hidden from view, waiting to be discovered once more. They are the hidden frescoes of the oldest church in the world, faded murals that speak softly, their stories whispered in brush strokes and pigments, and images half remembered by the walls that hold them. For many years the church's walls appeared plain, unadorned, a simple testament to faith's humility. But as careful restorations began, beneath the surface, fragments of ancient artistry began to emerge. Delicate outlines of figures, scenes of sacred gatherings, and symbols of hope and renewal. These frescoes are not grand or ostentatious. They do not boast the brilliance of later churches. Instead, their beauty is quiet, subtle, a gentle offering from artists who lived in times of uncertainty and quiet devotion. Some depict saints whose names have been lost. Others show scenes from stories whispered in early Christian communities. Moments of healing, compassion, and sacrifice. The colors are muted now, softened by time's slow hand. But their power remains. One fresco reveals a woman holding a small child, her eyes filled with tenderness and sorrow, a silent guardian, watching over the generations. Another shows a flock of birds taking flight, a symbol of souls ascending, hope carried on wings. The discovery of these frescoes sparked new questions. Who painted them? Were they created by a single hand or many? Did they serve as a teaching tool, a way to communicate sacred stories to those who could not read? Scholars believe the artists were likely members of the church community themselves, artisans whose faith was expressed through color and form, who painted not for fame but for love. Their work was an act of prayer, a visual liturgy offered. To the divine, the frescoes also hold mysteries. Some images seem unfinished, others covered by layers of whitewash, perhaps deliberately hidden during times when images were deemed dangerous or forbidden. Could this be evidence of conflict between faith and power, icon and iconoclast? In a corner of the crypt, a faint inscription was found, almost erased, reading simply, for those who see with the heart. It is a quiet invitation to look beyond the surface, to find meaning not just in what is painted, but in what is hidden. The hidden frescoes remind us that faith is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it is painted in whispers, in colors fading, and images waiting patiently to be seen. Again, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine stepping softly through the quiet halls of the church. See the walls glow with faint light, the frescoes shimmering just beneath the surface, telling their stories in silence. Feel the presence of those who painted, prayed, and waited for their art to be discovered anew. Know that beneath the stillness of stone, faith lives in every brush stroke, every shadow, every secret held in color. Rest now, wrapped in the gentle embrace of these hidden stories. The frescoes watch over you, quietly and forever. Some structures speak without words. They do not shout, nor do they sing, but they hum softly through stone and shadow, echoing with the memories of those who stood near them long ago. These are the whispering columns of the oldest church in the world, pillars that have held the weight of centuries and quietly listened all the while. They rise like sentinels from the earth, smooth to the touch in places where 1,000 hands once brushed against them. No two are exactly alike. Some lean ever so slightly, as if bowing to time. Others remain perfectly still, rooted in silence. But each one seems to hold a presence, not just of architecture, but of remembrance. Carved from local limestone. These columns were brought from the quarries by hand, dragged by men and women whose names were never recorded. They were lifted and placed with care, not for grandeur, but for shelter, to hold a roof over prayer. And yet, despite their seeming stillness, they have become known for something more. They whisper. No sound can be recorded. No voice is ever truly heard. But those who spend time near the columns speak of a sensation, a warmth, a tingling, a faint stirring of the air. Some say they hear words just on the edge of understanding. Others feel nothing, and yet leave changed. Historians suggest that the design of the church's acoustics plays a role. The central columns, spaced precisely, carry sound in curious ways. A whispered prayer at one end can travel to the opposite side with surprising clarity, as if the stones themselves become messengers. This is not mere chance. The early builders, whether through science or instinct, understood how sacred sound moved. In a time when few could read, when sermons were spoken not from pulpits but from hearts, the architecture became a vessel for the voice, and so the columns became more than supports. They became listeners, witnesses to confession and joy, guardians of silence. There are stories, quiet ones, passed from monk to monk, of people who sat beside the same column for days, hoping to feel what others had described. One story tells of a grieving mother who leaned against a column in the south aisle and felt a sudden sense of peace wash over her, as though someone were standing beside her, whispering, "You are not alone." Another tells of an aging priest who returned to the church after 40 years away, and when he touched the first column on the left, he felt a warmth rise through his bones, a welcome home unspoken. Could it be memory held in stone? Could it be the breath of prayers absorbed over time, echoing back in quiet moments? The Greeks believed that certain stones held life, that marble and limestone, once shaped by hand, retained something of the souls who carved them. Perhaps these Columns, touched by thousands, have simply remembered how to listen. Each one has marks, faint carvings, initials, cross shapes worn smooth. Pilgrims left them like footprints in reverse, signs that they had passed this way, that they had believed. No plaque marks them, no tour guide points them out. But the faithful still find their way. They sit beside them, lean against them, close, their eyes, and listen. Not for voices, but for stillness. Because sometimes what we call a whisper is really the absence of noise, a space open for understanding, for something older than speech to move through us. Tonight, as you lie in bed, let your breath become slow. Let the noise of the day soften. Imagine standing beneath a vaulted ceiling of stone, cool air brushing your face, a great column at your back, steady and silent. Imagine it listening to you, not to your words, but to your heartbeat. And in that quiet, you may hear something too, a presence, a peace, a promise softly spoken by the past. The whispering columns remain, and they are still listening. There are some flames that burn not for light, but for remembrance, not for show, but for hope. In the darkest times of human history, when even the sky seemed to turn its face, there was one such flame, a single candle that burned quietly, faithfully through the terror of the plague. They say it stood on the small altar in the chapel corner of the world's oldest church. A simple beeswax candle set in a bronze holder, lit at the first whisper of illness in the city beyond. While the streets of Antioch fell to silence, as doors were bolted and the air grew thick with mourning, this flame never died. The year is not certain. Perhaps it was during the Cyprian plague, or one of the many unnamed waves that swept through the Levant. But what is known, what is felt, is that the church did not close its doors completely. It became a shelter, a place of quiet tending. Inside, the candle burned. Monks and caregivers, few in number and fragile in health, took shift to guard the flame, not out of superstition, but of faith. For them it represented the soul of the church itself, its unwavering promise to hold light, even when the world was drowning in shadow. Outside, life unraveled. Families vanished in days. Carts rolled through alleyways at dawn to collect the nameless. Markets emptied. The sound of bells gave way to the sound of wind. And yet the candle burned. A journal discovered in the vestry tells of one brother Elias, a young man who arrived at the church before the worst began. His entries, written with a steady hand that grows shakier as the days pass, speak often of that candle. I do not understand why it still burns. It has outlasted its wax. Perhaps it is mercy, perhaps it is madness. But when I look at it, I remember who I am. Some believe this candle was miraculously sustained, a divine sign. Others suggest that its caretakers quietly replaced it each night, preserving the illusion of an unbroken flame. But perhaps it does not matter. Whether miracle or metaphor, the flame burned. One woman, surviving the plague and returning to the church years later, wept upon seeing the small bronze holder still sitting in its place. She had lost everything, and yet here it was, a symbol of what did not die. The candle became more than light. It became witness. It watched as prayers were whispered over the dying. It lit the final moments of those who had no family left to speak their names. It stood through cough and fever, through hopelessness and hymns, when the plague finally loosened its grip and life returned in cautious steps, the candle was still there. Its flame, or perhaps its memory, now flickered in the hearts of those who survived. From that time forward, a tradition was kept. Each year, on the same night, a single candle is lit in the chapel corner. Not announced, not ritualized, only placed quietly and left to burn until it finishes itself. No sermon is given. No name is spoken. Only the hush of reverence and the soft breath of a flame remembering all who passed. The candle teaches us this, that endurance is not always loud, that survival is not always heroic. Sometimes it is simply showing up. Sometimes it is holding a small light while the world crumbles around you. As you settle into stillness tonight, close your eyes and see that flickering flame. It is not far. It glows in quiet corners, in hospitals, in lonely bedrooms, in hands that tremble but do not let go. Let it warm you. You, too, are a keeper of light. The candle burned through the plague, and it will burn again. Sleep now, knowing that even in your darkest hours, you are never fully without flame. In the far corner of the old sanctuary, just beyond where most pilgrims walk, there is a stone unremarkable to the eye, gray and time-worn, but upon its surface is a faint inscription, scratched not in ink or gold, but in ash. Ash, the residue of flame of things burned, lost, or offered. And yet here it was not scattered to the wind. It was pressed into stone, as if grief itself had found a way to speak. The words are nearly gone, worn by the hands of time and the fingers of those who traced them in wonder. But enough remains to recognize it. A psalm, an ancient song of sorrow and praise, a prayer whispered through centuries. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. That is where the ash begins. A line from Psalm 130, a plea, a longing, a reaching out from despair toward something eternal. No one knows exactly who etched it or when. Some believe it was done during a siege, perhaps when the city fell into enemy hands. Others think it came after a fire, when the church's wooden beams had burned and the sanctuary lay in ruin. Perhaps it was a monk who remained when all others had fled, a solitary figure in the dark, taking ash from the scorched altar, kneeling before the stone and pressing the words in, letter by fragile letter. Why ash? Because it was all he had. Because there was no ink left. Because grief, when it can't speak, writes itself into whatever the earth allows. For years the inscription remained hidden beneath soot and dust, until careful hands in the modern era gently cleaned the stone, revealing that fragile line. A song not shouted, but mourned. What makes this psalm so haunting is not just its cry, but its patience. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits. Double quotes. It does not demand. It does not rage. It waits in silence, in faith, in ashes. And there is something deeply human in that. The psalm etched in ash reminds us that even when all is lost, when walls have crumbled and candles have burned low, there is still voice. There is still prayer, not lofty or polished, but raw, simple, and real. Ash has long held sacred meaning. In many traditions it marks repentance, humility, mortality, but it also marks survival. What has burned down but not vanished? What remains after the fire? There is a kind of sacred defiance in etching a psalm in ash. a whisper to the heavens. You have not forgotten me, and I have not forgotten you. Pilgrims who visit this stone often leave in silence. They do not take photographs. They do not sing hymns. They place their hands on the stone, feel the faint ridges of the letters, and weep, not because the words are sad, but because they are true. And isn't that what all songs are? Truths shaped into song, grief made bearable through rhythm, hope buried inside lament. Some say if you come just before sunrise, the light enters the chapel at such an angle that it touches only that one stone, and for a moment the letters glow faintly, as if the ash is singing again. Others say they've heard nothing, only stillness, only the soft beating of their own hearts, echoing with the same cry out of the depths. Tonight, as you rest, let that prayer become yours, not with words, but with breath. Breathe in the ache. Breathe out the waiting. Know that even if your voice trembles, it still rises. You are not alone in your longing. Others have knelt in the ash before you, and still they hoped. Let sleep come now, gentle as falling ash, quiet as the song that lives in stone. There is a place beside the oldest church where history and nature meet in quiet conversation, a single olive tree, ancient beyond counting, standing guard beside a broken stone wall. This is the story of the olive tree and the broken wall, a tale of resilience and grace whispered through leaf and stone. The wall is no longer whole. Its stones are cracked, weathered, some missing altogether, yet it remains, a boundary, a witness, a frame for what grows beside it. The olive tree, with its silver-green leaves shimmering in the breeze, rises tall and strong, its roots tangled deep in the cracked earth beneath. Olive trees have long been symbols of peace and endurance, their branches carrying blessings through countless generations. They thrive in harsh soil, in places where other trees wither. Their fruit, pressed for oil, becomes light in the darkness. This particular olive tree is said to have been planted centuries ago by hands both gentle and desperate, by a community seeking hope after war, after ruin. The broken wall may have been part of the church's outer defense, a shield against invaders, now worn away by time. Together the tree and the wall tell a story of fragility and strength. Where the wall has fallen, the tree has grown, a silent promise that life endures even when protection fails. Some say that during times of siege, the olive tree provided shade and fruit to those inside, a source of comfort amid uncertainty. Its roots may have dug beneath the stones of the fallen wall, reclaiming space once lost. For pilgrims, the olive tree is more than a tree. It is a symbol of the church's spirit, steadfast, enduring, and quietly powerful. There is a quiet ritual practiced by visitors, to trace the rough texture of the wall with their fingers, then touch the leaves of the olive tree, connecting. Stone and leaf, past and present legends grew around this tree too. One speaks of a hermit who once lived beneath its branches, a keeper of stories and prayers, who listened to the wind and spoke only in whispers. Another tells of lovers who carved their initials into the bark, promising faithfulness in a world that often forgot. Nature and human hands intertwined here, both shaping and being shaped. In this place, the broken wall does not symbolize failure, but the beauty of imperfection, the way time reshapes what we hold dear, how loss and growth can exist side by side. Tonight, As you settle into rest, imagine standing beside that ancient olive tree. Feel the rough stones of the broken wall beneath your fingertips. Hear the soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze, a sound as old as hope itself. Know that even when things fall apart, there is strength in what remains. There is peace in what grows anew. Let the olive tree's quiet resilience fill your heart, and the broken wall remind you that every fracture holds the possibility of new life. Sleep now, cradled by the gentle embrace of leaf and stone, held in the timeless dance of endurance and grace. Once, they say, a bell hung above the oldest church in the world, not grand in size, not cast in gold, but small, dark, and clear in tone. It did not ring often, and when it did, it was not to summon, but to still. They called it the bell of silence. Its sound was not loud, but piercing, a single note that stopped the breath of a room. It rang not for weddings or war, nor even for the calling of prayer. It rang when someone needed space, when grief had entered the walls, when something sacred had been broken. And then, one day, it disappeared. No record explains its vanishing. No theft was reported, no enemy claimed it. One morning it simply wasn't there. The tower stood quiet, the rope hung loose, the bell was gone, and in its absence, stories began to bloom. Some say it was taken down by the monks themselves, lowered under moonlight and buried in the earth, to protect it from invading hands who would have melted it down for coin. Others believe it was shattered by accident, and the pieces scattered into the stone of the church, as if to let its silence live in every wall, every floor. But the story, most often told, is this, that the bell rang once in the middle of the night, though no one had touched the rope. Its note echoed long and strange through the nave, and when the caretakers rushed to the tower, it was no longer there. They searched, for weeks, then months, every chamber, every crypt. The bell was gone, but the silence it left behind remained, and so the bell of silence became something else. Not an object, but a presence, a way of knowing when to hush, when to listen, when to be still. Over time, the tradition shifted. Instead of ringing a bell when sorrow struck, the monks would simply open the great doors of the church and let the wind blow in. That was the new sound of silence, a whisper through the old stones, filling the place where the bell had once spoken. Visitors to the church today still ask about the missing bell. A few claim to have heard it, not from the tower, but in the crypts below, in the echoes of their own footsteps, in the groan of wood and wind. It is said that those who hear it are in need of healing, and that the sound is not heard with the ears, but with the soul. Some believe the bell was never truly lost, that it still exists, but rings only when the church itself feels pain, that it sounds when prayers go unheard, when grief grows too great to name. There is an alcove near the sacristy where a small, empty hook remains. No one dares remove it. It is said to have held the bell's rope, and some nights, long after the visitors have left, a few caretakers have sworn they've seen the rope sway gently, though the air was still. The bell of silence reminds us that not all sound is meant to stir. Some is meant to soothe, to say, without words, "Be still, I see you." You are held. And silence, in its own way, is sacred. It is the space where healing begins, the pause between cries, the breath between words. Tonight, as the world grows quiet, listen for what cannot be heard. A bell that does not clang, but hums softly somewhere beneath your thoughts. Let its absence calm you. Let its memory wrap you like a cloak. You do not need noise to be known. You do not need sound to feel safe. The bell of silence may be lost, but its hush still fills this sacred space. And now it fills yours. 2 dots sleep now beneath the sky's quiet hush, and let what is unspoken hold you in peace. Within the sacred geometry of the oldest church, there is a small chamber that holds a secret folded in light and shadow, the baptistry, a place where life and faith meet, where water shapes new beginnings, and the past flows into the present like a gentle stream. Yet, beneath the soft ripple of the baptismal font, whispers speak of a shadow, not of darkness, but of something. Lingering between moments, a presence felt more than seen, a breath caught between light and stone. The baptistry is modest, with walls smooth and cool, bathed in the filtered glow of narrow windows, their glass fractured by centuries, casting shards of color on worn stone. It is here that many came to be welcomed, washed clean by water and promise, a sacred threshold, a gentle crossing. But some who lingered too long near the font, those who moved quietly in prayer or in doubt, have spoken of the shadow, a figure, without form, an echo of a moment lost to time. Is it the spirit of the church's first baptism, a guardian who watches over new beginnings? Or is it something older, a memory pressed into stone like a faint fingerprint? Local lore tells of a child baptized here centuries ago, who vanished shortly after, without a trace. Some say the shadow is that child's echo, a gentle guide for souls just crossing into the light. Others believe the shadow appears at dusk, when the light fades and the church exhales, waiting for those who seek comfort or answers. Visitors have reported feeling a sudden coolness near the font, a quiet pull at their hearts, and an unspoken invitation to pause and reflect. One monk described the shadow as the breath of the past softly brushing against the present. No artist dared paint the shadow. No poet dared name it. It remains an unspoken truth. Perhaps it is a reminder that every beginning carries with it the weight of what came before, that baptism is not just a washing away, but also a carrying. Forward. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, imagine standing quietly in the baptistry. Feel the cool stone beneath your hands, the gentle flow of water, and the soft presence hovering just out of sight. Let the shadow be a companion, not a fear, but a quiet witness to your journey. Breathe in the mystery. Breathe out your worries. The shadow waits not to scare, but to remind you that you are part of a larger story, a story of water and stone, light and shadow, loss and hope. Sleep now, cradled in the soft embrace of beginnings and endings, held in the gentle hush of the baptistry's shadow. Beneath the soaring voices of the choir, beneath the hymns that rise like whispered prayers into the vaulted ceiling, there lies a hidden path, a secret passage carved in stone and shadow, forgotten by many, known only to a few. It is a narrow corridor, winding and cool, running beneath the church's heart, connecting places unseen, unheard, and untouched by time's bright gaze. The passage is not marked on any map. It was built long ago, in an age when secrecy was safety, when whispers needed walls to hold them, and footsteps were best kept silent. Its stones are worn smooth by hands long gone, its air thick with the scent of earth and old prayers. Many believe it was once used by monks and clergy to move unseen, to protect sacred relics, or to escape in times of danger. Others say it served a more mysterious purpose, a place to hold forbidden meetings, to shelter those who dared question the world beyond the church's walls, to hide manuscripts not meant for common eyes. The passage opens in the crypt, a hidden door behind the choir stalls. To find it, one must look closely at the worn wooden panels, listen for the faintest draught, and press a stone just so inside. The narrow corridor twists and turns, leading deeper beneath the church's foundation. Along the walls, faint scratches and carvings tell stories, names, dates, and symbols etched in quiet defiance. A cross here, a dove there, a date almost lost to time. Light is scarce. Only the flicker of candles once lit the way, their smoke leaving traces in the rough-hewn ceiling dot. At the passage's end there is a small chamber, empty now but for a stone altar. It is said this chamber was a place of secret worship, a refuge from the eyes of authority, a sanctuary where the unseen prayed. One legend tells of a scholar who used this passage to bring forbidden books into the church, books smuggled from distant lands filled with knowledge both feared and revered. Another speaks of a prisoner, hidden here for days, kept safe from harm while the world outside raged. The passage beneath the choir is a silent witness to hope and fear, courage and caution. It holds the breath of moments no one else remembers. Pilgrims sometimes try to find it, drawn by tales of mystery and hidden history. Few succeed, and those who do speak of a strange feeling, a hush deeper than any other, as if the stones themselves are listening, waiting. The secret passage teaches us that beneath what is seen and sung, there are layers unseen, hidden, paths that carry us through the dark, guiding us toward light. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself stepping quietly through that secret door. Feel the cool stone under your fingertips, the gentle echo of your footsteps in the narrow corridor, and the soft pulse of history wrapped in shadow. Know that even in silence, there are places where truth hides and waiting. Let the secret passage beneath the choir be your guide, leading you gently toward rest. Sleep now, cradled in the quiet mystery beneath the voices, held safe beneath the oldest songs. In the quiet sanctuary where centuries converge, there rests a mosaic, the final mosaic, a tapestry of tiny stones, colors woven into a silent song, telling a story both ancient and eternal. The mosaic adorns the apse behind the altar, a place where light filters softly through stained glass, dancing like whispers across its fractured surface. Its image is both simple and profound, a circle of hands joined in unity, a symbol of faith, hope, and enduring community. Each tessera, each small piece, carries a weight of meaning, laid by artisans whose hands were guided by devotion, not by desire for fame or fortune. They worked quietly, shaping fragments of stone and glass into a whole greater than its parts. The colors have faded, yet the mosaic still speaks. Deep blues, gentle golds, and soft earth tones mingle in a pattern that invites reflection rather than declaration. Historians believe it was created in the Church's later years, a final act of artistry and prayer before the world around it shifted once more. Some see it as a farewell, a blessing for those who would come after. Pilgrims, often find themselves drawn to the mosaic's circle. They trace its curve with their eyes, imagining the hands reaching out, offering comfort, strength, and belonging. It is a reminder that even in the oldest stones, community is alive and breathing. The mosaic survived fires, earthquakes, and wars. Its cracks tell of struggles endured, yet its form remains intact, a testament to resilience. There is a gentle rhythm to the mosaic's design, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. It is a pulse of continuity, connecting past and present, artist and worshipper, stone and soul. One caretaker, in her quiet hours, confessed that she sometimes imagines the hands moving, lifting, holding, offering peace to those who enter. The sanctuary. It is a comforting thought that art, like faith, can reach beyond time. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, imagine standing before the final mosaic. Feel the cool stone beneath your fingers. See the colors soften in the twilight. Hear the silent song of the hands joined in grace. Let it remind you that you are part of a circle, larger than yourself, woven into a story of connection, hope, and enduring love. As sleep gathers gently around you, carry with you the mosaic's quiet blessing. Know that like those tiny stones, you are part of something whole and beautiful. Rest now, held in the timeless embrace of faith and artistry, wrapped in the final mosaic's gentle light. In the vaulted silence of the oldest church, where stone arches reach toward unseen heavens, there once rang a choir, voices lifted in sacred harmony, now quiet, but never truly gone. These are the echoes of the forgotten choir, whispers of song carried through time, lingering in air and stone like a fading prayer. The choir once filled the nave with melody, young voices trained in devotion, old voices seasoned with faith. Their songs were not merely music, but stories of sorrow and joy, of loss and hope, woven into hymns that rose and fell like the breath of the church itself. Time has silenced those voices. Wars scattered the choir, plagues stole many, and ages passed, leaving only memory and faint resonance. Yet, if you enter on a quiet evening, when the light wanes and the world outside fades, you may still hear the faintest stirring, a breath, a sigh, a note barely caught. It is said that the stones themselves remember. That sound is not lost, but held within walls, folded into arches, trapped beneath the floors. Some visitors have reported moments of sudden warmth, a feeling of being surrounded by unseen song, as if the choir has returned to sing for those who listen. Others hear nothing, but sense a presence, a soft comfort, a silent encouragement. The choir was more than voices. It was community, a gathering of souls bound by music and faith, lifting themselves and others beyond pain and fear. Their songs celebrated life's fleeting beauty, marked passage through grief, and called forth peace in troubled times. A few ancient manuscripts, recovered from the church's archives, preserve fragments of their melodies, notes written by trembling hands, words of hope penned in fading ink. These pieces are incomplete, like a dream remembered only in part. Yet they speak volumes about the lives that once filled the space with song. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, imagine yourself seated in the nave, surrounded by stone and shadow. Hear the soft, distant murmur of the choir's echoes, carried on a breeze that moves through time. Let the forgotten voices wrap around you, a lullaby from centuries past. Feel the unity of those who sang before you, their faith and love woven into every note, Dot, and know that you are part of this timeless chorus, joined by the song of human spirit, by the melody of hope. Dot, sleep now, held gently in the echoes of the forgotten choir, cradled by song and silence alike. There are layers that time lays down gently, not in stone or paint or parchment, but in something softer, a veil of dust and memory, thin as breath, light as air, but weightier than history itself. Inside the oldest church in the world, beneath the carvings and candlelight, there is dust, a film upon the rafters, a shimmer on unused pews, gathered in corners where no foot has stepped in years. Dot, it is not the dust of neglect, nor the kind one brushes away in haste. It is the sacred dust of remembrance, a living silence composed of what was once alive, ashes of incense, flecks of stone, particles of long-ago pages turned by trembling fingers. Every grain holds memory. Every breath stirs the past. Monks once spoke of this dust with reverence, calling it the skin of time, the Church's way of keeping touch with all who have entered, prayed, wept, hoped. Dot, in the early morning light, when sunbeams cut through stained glass, you can see it dance, a slow, drifting ballet of what once was, rising in golden haze through cold shafts of air. Some believe the dust holds voices, that if one could only listen with the right kind of heart, the motes would speak not in words, but in feelings. And perhaps it is true. A visitor kneels alone and feels suddenly not alone. A priest returns after years and is brought to tears by a scent, a sensation, dust and memory mingling in the air like a forgotten lullaby. The veil of dust reminds us that history is not just story, it is presence. It lingers. It settles into the places we love and the places we leave. There is a bench near the back wall, long unused, its wood worn smooth. No one knows who last sat there, but the dust remembers. And just as time places dust upon stone, so too does memory settle into us, quietly, invisibly, until one day it rises, shimmering in the light of reflection. Dot, sometimes the caretakers sweep, but always with gentleness, never clearing too much, for to erase all dust would be to erase the Church's softest archive. One monk wrote, "Let the dust remain where the faithful have wept." It is the closest thing to their presence, and so it does remain. Dot, in the quietest corners of the church, where sun touches only once a day, the veil rests, light is blessing. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, let your thoughts settle, like dust, on the memories that shaped you. Do not rush to clear them. Let them shimmer gently in the soft light of your own sanctuary. You, too, carry a veil of memory, of joys, of losses, of quiet days once lived and gone. And that is sacred. Breathe in slowly. Exhale even slower. Let time drape itself softly across your heart. The veil does not hide, it honors. And in honoring, it allows peace to fall like dust, silent, slow, and eternal. Sleep now, wrapped not in forgetting, but in gentle remembering, on certain nights when the world is hushed and the sky stretches wide and dark. Something extraordinary happens in the oldest church, a moment when the heavens seem to draw near, and the stars themselves appear to enter its sacred space. They say the church has a secret communion with the night sky, that its stones are tuned to the ancient music of the cosmos, and that once in a while, when the moon is just right, the stars come down to rest within its walls. The story begins with a celestial event, long ago, when a rare alignment of planets lit the sky with a soft silver glow. Pilgrims gathered, their eyes lifted upward, awestruck by the shimmering dance of lights. That night, as the watchers prayed, something miraculous occurred. The church seemed to breathe, its stones pulsing with an unseen light. Windows that had long caught only daylight now held the shimmer of distant galaxies, and the vaulted ceilings echoed with silent starlight. Some believe it was a vision, a blessing sent from above. Others think it was a moment when the veil between earth and sky thinned, allowing the infinite to touch the finite. Inside, the air grew cool and charged, and the faithful felt a presence beyond words. A feeling of vastness and intimacy intertwined the cosmic and the human, hand in hand. The priests lit candles, their flames small mirrors to the stars above, and the congregation sang songs that seemed to rise effortlessly, carrying their hopes into the shimmering night. For hours, the church was bathed in a light both ancient and new, a sacred glow that left no shadow untouched. Since then, stories passed down through generations speak of nights when the stars return, when the sky and stone align once more, and the church becomes a vessel of cosmic grace. Visitors say that on these nights, if you stand quietly beneath the highest arch, you can feel the heartbeat of the universe, slow and steady, matching your own. They say the stars whisper secrets of time without end, of peace beyond sorrow, of light that never fades. The night the stars entered the church is a reminder that we are part of something vast, a universe that cradles us gently, holding youth in the palm of its hand. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, imagine the cool, radiant touch of starlight upon your skin. Feel the quiet wonder of the cosmos wrapping around you, a soft, infinite blanket. Breathe deeply. Let the universe lull you toward rest. Know that, like the stars, you belong to something vast and beautiful, and that the light within you shines, even in the darkest night. Sleep now, cradled by starlight and silence, held in the endless embrace of the night sky. Time moves differently within the oldest church. It is not the hurried, ticking clock of daily life, but a quiet, steady pulse, the silent footsteps of time echoing softly through stone and shadow. Each step is measured, deliberate, a whisper, rather than a stomp, marking the passage of centuries. With grace and patience, the church has witnessed empires rise and fall, lovers meet and part, prayers whispered and hopes born. Its walls carry the weight of countless footsteps, some hurried, some hesitant, each imprint a story folded into the fabric of this sacred place. Yet time here is not relentless. It is gentle, embracing all that was and all that will be. Like the soft padding of feet on ancient floors, it moves without disturbance, a presence felt but rarely seen. The stones beneath the nave remember every footfall. The worn paths show where pilgrims paused, where monks knelt, where children played quietly in sunbeams. Each step echoes a life lived, a moment cherished. There is a hush that comes with understanding time's quiet rhythm, a stillness that invites reflection, invites us to slow our own hurried pace, to breathe in the steady beat of existence. The church teaches that time is not just what we measure with clocks. It is the layering of memory and presence, the gentle accumulation of moments large and small. A caretaker once said, "Here, Time is a friend who walks softly beside us, holding our hands as we journey through the years. Outside, seasons change in bursts of color and cold. Inside, time moves as a soft echo, a slow dance of light and shadow. This slow passage offers comfort, reminding us that no moment is truly lost, that all we carry within us becomes part of a larger story. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, imagine the silent footsteps of time walking gently beside you. Feel their quiet rhythm slowing your breath, softening the edges of your thoughts. Let the steady pace of centuries soothe you, and the gentle hush of history wrap around you like a blanket. Know that you are part of a timeless journey, a path walked by many. Before and many after sleep now, held in the patient embrace of time's silent footsteps. Cradled by the enduring heart of the oldest church high above the nave. Above even the oldest arches and timbers, there lies a small, often forgotten chamber, the lantern room, a circular space just beneath the rooftop cross, crowned with narrow windows facing every wind. It was built to hold a single light, not a grand beacon nor a dazzling flame, but a humble lantern lit at dusk, left to burn through the deep hours of night. This light was not meant for spectacle. It did not guide ships or warn cities. It was, gentler than that, a flicker of hope suspended above the silence, a soul-shaped flame guarding the slumbering stone below. The monks believed that as long as the lantern was lit, the church was alive, not merely standing, but breathing, watching over the village, carrying the prayers of the weary skyward each evening. Before the stars could fully settle, a monk would climb the spiral stairs with steady hands, shielding the flame from the breeze. At the summit he would light the lantern, say a silent prayer, and leave the room in darkness, save for that one small, golden glow in winter. The light burned against frost-covered glass. In summer, it shimmered beside dancing moths. Through storms and snow, through plagues and peace, the lantern remained, until one day, when the wars had grown loud and the sky red with smoke, the lantern went out. No one noticed at first. There were other flames to tend, other losses to mourn, but when the church doors reopened years later and the wind had swept clean the broken pews, a child climbing the stairs found the lantern cold, its wick curled like a question mark, its glass stained with time. The room had grown dusty, but the windows still faced the four winds, and the sky still waited. So the story goes, the child, though not a monk, not trained, not even tall enough to reach the hook, lit a candle from their pocket and placed it within the lantern. The light returned, small, quiet, but present. From that moment on, it was not only monks who lit the lantern. Villagers would take turns, a traveler, a widow, a young couple with a prayer for their future. Each brought their own flame. Each left the light for the night. And the lantern room became more than a chamber. It became a memory passed forward, a ritual without words, a reminder that even the smallest light matters most in the darkest hours. The last light is still lit every evening, not always with oil, sometimes with electricity, sometimes with an old candle stub wrapped in a trembling hand, but the purpose remains unchanged, to hold hope aloft where sky and stone meet. And though no one stands in the room through the night, some say the light glows warmer when someone prays, as if the flame listens, As if it too remembers Dot tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, imagine that quiet room, high above the world, wind gently pressing the old windows, and a single flickering flame standing vigil over all who sleep below. Dot, let that light be yours. Let it hold your sorrows, your questions, your quietest dreams. Let it be the keeper of your peace. Know that even when your own flame feels faint, there is always one burning for you, above, beside and within. Dot, sleep now, wrapped in the warmth of the last light, watched over by stone and star, cradled by history, and gently carried into dreams.